Hey there, crafty friends. Thanks for tuning into my channel. This is Michelle from LaFonda Crafts, and in this tutorial, I'll show you how I make this cute little snowman. Now, this wooden snowman I got from Target. It was a couple of years ago, so I'm not sure if they still have anything like that in their art section by the school supplies. But I'm painting him up with Cottage White from Folk Art. It's a chalk paint, and I give it 2 coats. This wooden round plaque I got from Hobby Lobby. I believe it came in a pack of 2 in their woodpile section. I'm painting it in the same paint, and I'm painting it all around except right in the middle. I'll just leave that unpainted. And I'm using some black chalk paint from Folk Art again to paint the snowman's hat. I'm going in with this flat brush and just going real slowly, just trying to be careful not to get the black paint on the white paint. And of course, I got some black paint on the white paint, so I'm using this very small file that I have and just sanding the black paint off of his little face, and then I'll just touch up with the white paint where I need to cover up any remaining black. And here I'm using terracotta from Anita's acrylic paint. So to make the little carrot nose, I'll start in the middle there and then just kind of pull the brush out to the side to make the carrot shape. And I'll just fill in to make the nose as big as I like for this snowman. So now I'm using a Posca paint pen in black for the little eyes. So I just do 2 little dots for the eyes. Now I'm making little dots for his mouth, giving him a little smile. Now I have some blush and a Q-tip to give him some cheeks. Now I'm going in with the Q-tip, but I realized that I should have gotten the Q-tip wet. And this is something that I always forget. I don't make cheeks all the time, so I usually forget that I should get the Q-tip wet, and it makes the blush stick to the surface a lot better. So I'm just spraying a little bit of water on one end of the Q-tip, and now I'm trying to make his little cheek again, give him some rosy cheeks. And you'll see it's kind of a lot of back and forth with the blush and the clean end of the Q-tip. I'm just trying to get the right shade and the right shape and the right size for his little cheeks. So I'll do that on both sides. And I really should have done this before I painted the nose. But like I said, I don't paint faces all that often, so I forget what the right process or the right order should be. So I'm just working around the nose. Now I'm going over to the other side, trying to figure out where the cheek should be. And I always get a little bit thrown by the snowman nose since it's obviously off center from the center of the face. It always kind of, I guess it just plays with my mind a little bit because I think naturally you think, okay, the face should be somewhat symmetrical, but then the carrot nose kind of throws me off sometimes. So here I'm just blending some more, so it's just a lot of back and forth until I get the look that I want for his little cheeks. Now I'm using a little stylus tool. I got that from the Dollar Tree. I'm just putting some white paint on the little end of my tool there, and I give him some little white spots in his black eyes. And going back to the wood round, this is going to be the base where I put the snowman on. I'm just using a little stamp pad, or I'm sorry, a little ink pad, and I'm just adding some distressing to the edges of this plaque. So I just kind of rub it on the edges there, and then I'll use a damp paper towel just to blend it in. So that just gives it a distressed look. And here I'm using some wood glue. So wood glue works best on raw wood. So that's why I left the bottom of the snowman and the very center of the round plaque unpainted. So I have the wood glue. Now I'm adding some hot glue. So the wood glue is for long-term hold, and the hot glue is just so it'll adhere instantly. And this little plaque I had gotten, it was like a set of little signs like to put in plants or herbs, so you could label your herbs. So here I'm just breaking off the bottom of that little sign. So it's wooden on one side and the other side had like a chalkboard on it, but I'm just going to use that wooden side. And I'm just seeing where I can place the sign on the snowman. And I'm using these clickable stamps to write "Feeling Frosty" on my little sign. And these little clickable stamps, I got them at Michael's. Amazon has some as well, but when I had checked the prices, I think Michael's prices were a little bit better compared to Amazon. So here I'm just lining up my words, making sure they're kind of centered and lining up correctly. So once I have my "Feeling Frosty" on there, I go in with this little sander and I just sand it a little bit just so it looks a little bit faded, a little bit worn. Just kind of giving it some character. And now I'm going to give the snowman a scarf. So this was just some scrap fabric that I had left over, and I had two short pieces. So I'm just going to kind of piece them together for his scarf. So I know you can't really see what I'm doing here. It's a little bit off camera, but I'm just adding some hot glue to glue on his scarf. So I've got the first piece on, and then the second piece I'm just kind of seeing how I want to drape it. So again, I'll use some hot glue to adhere it. So I'm just holding it where I want it to be, adding the hot glue. And then I want that other piece, or it's the same piece, but I want the other half to kind of lay a certain way. So I'm adding the hot glue and then pressing it down. So there's his cute little scarf. And I'm using this Spanish moss just to put around the base, just to soften the where the snowman meets the round base. So I like to use Spanish moss just to kind of soften that line so there's not like a harsh transition from the base to the snowman. The Spanish moss does a good job of just kind of adding texture and interest and just softening that transition. So here I'm just going around and trimming some of that moss, and I'm seeing how I want to glue the little sign. So I add hot glue to the bottom of that sign and to the back where it'll lean up against the snowman's body. So I have these little foam balls. They're from Hobby Lobby from the Christmas section. They're called a bowl filler, but basically they're just little white foam balls, and they come, I think, in like, it's a mixture of two different sizes. So I just got a few balls just to kind of glue around here and there like snowballs around our little snowman. So there he is, surrounded by his little snowballs. And here I'm trying to decide how I want to embellish his hat. I know I want to use that greenery, but I didn't know if I wanted to use those little red berries or the pine cone. So ultimately I decided to go with the pine cone. I did like the red berries, but since his scarf was red, the berries were kind of a slightly different red. So it's, with reds, it's kind of hard to match when you have two different tones. So I decided just to keep sort of like those warm colors with the brown pine cone. So I have some baking soda here that I'm scooping out onto just a piece of wax paper. And I'm going to make some puffy snow. So it's 1 part baking soda, 1 part white paint, and 1 part Mod Podge. So there I'm just kind of eyeballing everything. I'm adding the white paint to the baking soda, and then you'll see me add Mod Podge to the mixture. So again, it's in ratios of 1 to 1 to 1. So I'm going to use a little plastic palette knife to mix up my little puffy snow recipe. So I'm just making sure everything's nice and mixed. and all the baking soda is well incorporated into the paint and the Mod Podge. And then I'll just take my mixture and just dab it onto the snowman where I want it to look like snow fell. So I'm just going to speed this part up a little bit. And now you'll see me add the puffy snow to his hat. So I just kind of scoop it up and dab it where I want. So here I'm adding it to the pine cone and to that greenery, to the bill of his hat, and I just thought this gave it a nice look, just a nice feature to give the snowman more interest. So with these handmade pieces, I think all the embellishments, those are really what set your projects apart, make them special. And this sign had a lot of white space, so the snow was just a nice way to kind of cover up that white space, I guess. And here I'm using just a regular hair dryer. I have it on low heat and I'm just blowing the puffy snow. So that's actually making the mixture puff up. It's probably the baking soda that's making it puff up, and it just gives a nice look to your snow. So I don't know if you can really see it on camera, but in person you could really see the snow puff up. So here he is, looking so cute with his snow. And one final finishing touch is some glitter Mod Podge. I'm just going to add to the puffy snow. And I'm just going pretty softly with my paintbrush. The puffy snow is still wet underneath, so I don't want to mess it up. And you'll need to let it dry probably a few hours. So thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate your time. Here he is. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I would appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. Thanks.